found out my parents had named my brother as sole beneficiary in their will, so I stopped covering their utility bills, medical costs, and other extra expenses I'd been paying. A month later, out of the blue, Mom texted me the mortgage is due, with no greeting or small talk. I simply replied, "My name's Jake, and if I ever had doubts about where I stood in my family, they completely disappeared the day I found out about the will." It wasn't even some dramatic sit-down where my parents broke the news. No, I found out by pure dumb luck. It happened a few months back when I was over at their house, the same house I'd been helping them pay for over the past 5 years. Mortgage payments, grocery runs, fixing things around the place. I was the one holding everything together while my brother, Eric, did absolutely nothing. And when I say nothing, I mean literally nothing. No job, no responsibilities, just hanging around, waiting for life to hand him everything, which my parents seemed more than happy to do. That day, I was helping my dad with some paperwork because, as usual, neither of them could figure out how to handle it. He asked me to scan a stack of legal and financial documents, and I didn't think much of it until I saw it, a folder labeled estate plan and last will and testament sitting right there. I'm not usually one to snoop, but curiosity got the best of me. After all, I had been the one making sure they even had a roof over their heads. I figured it wasn't crazy to wonder how things were planned for the future. So I opened it. That's when my stomach dropped. Everything, and I mean everything, was going to Eric. The house, the savings, all the assets. There wasn't even a mention of me, aside from some generic lines about loving both their sons equally. Yeah, right, equally. That's why they were giving everything to the golden boy, while the son who kept them afloat didn't even get a footnote. I felt like an idiot. Here I was, breaking my back for them, making sure their bills got paid, making sure they never had to worry about food, while they sat there planning a future where I got absolutely nothing. And Eric? He wasn't just lazy, he was entitled. He never helped them, never paid a cent, but somehow he convinced them he deserved it all. Maybe because he's the younger kid, maybe because they always babied him, maybe because he knew exactly how to play them. Whatever the reason, they had made their decision. I sat there staring at the paper, my hands shaking from a mix of anger and heartbreak. How long had they been planning this? Had I always just been their free safety net? Did they even appreciate what I did for them? I don't know how long I sat there, but eventually my dad came back and noticed I wasn't scanning anything. "Hey Jake, what's taking so long?" he asked. I didn't bother hiding the will. I held it up and looked him dead in the eye. "So this is how it is?" I said, my voice way too calm. "Everything to Eric? After everything I've done for you?" My dad's face went pale for a second, but then he just sighed like I was some kid throwing a tantrum. "Jake, it's not what you think," he muttered. I snapped, because it looks pretty damn clear to me. I've been paying your mortgage, buying your groceries, fixing your house, while Eric does absolutely nothing. And he's the one you decided matters. He looked uncomfortable, but didn't even bother explaining. All he said was, "It's complicated." That was it. No apology. No explanation. Just two useless words, and a pathetic look like he expected me to just let it go and keep being their personal ATM. I should have walked out right then, but I wanted to hear it from both of them. I called for my mom. When she came in and saw the will in my hands, she at least had the decency to look guilty. But the words that came out of her mouth made my blood boil. "Jake, honey, you don't need the inheritance," she said, like she was doing me a favor. "You have a good job. You're independent. Eric, he struggles. We just want to make sure he's taken care of." That's when something inside me snapped. They knew exactly what they were doing, and in their minds, it was completely justified. They had spent years enabling Eric's laziness, and now they were rewarding it by handing him everything while tossing me aside like I didn't matter. I took a deep breath, clenched my jaw, and set the will down on the table. "Got it," I said, my voice scary calm. "Glad to know where we stand." Then I turned and walked out, ignoring their protests as I slammed the door behind me. They made their choice. Now I was going to make mine. I didn't go back after that. I didn't call. I didn't check in. For the first time in years, I let them handle their own problems. If something broke, they could fix it. If they needed groceries, they could figure it out themselves. If the mortgage came due, not my problem anymore. The silence lasted about 2 weeks. At first, I think they thought I was just pouting and would come crawling back like always. They probably figured I'd cool off and apologize for daring to be upset. But as the days passed with no word and no money, you could almost feel the shift. One afternoon, my phone buzzed. It was my dad. "Property taxes are due." That was it. "No, how are you?" "No, sorry for everything." Just a cold, transactional message, like I was still the bank they could tap whenever they wanted. I stared at the screen, almost laughing at how predictable it was. They really thought they could just demand money after all that. I typed back, "I'm sure Eric will handle it, since the house is his and all." It took exactly 5 minutes before my mom called. I let it ring. Then another text came in. "Jake, please don't be like this. We need to talk." Oh, now they wanted to talk. Now that reality was catching up to them. I waited an hour before replying. "There's nothing to talk about. You made your choice. Now live with it." I figured that would be the end of it for the day. I had made myself crystal clear. and I didn't feel an ounce of guilt about it. But then Eric decided to jump in. His text came late that evening, and the second when I saw his name pop up on my phone, I already knew it was going to be something annoying. Sure enough, when I opened the message, I was hit with pure entitlement. Eric had texted, "Dude, why are you being such a drama queen? It's not a big deal. Just help them out like you always do." I almost laughed. Not a big deal. He was seriously acting like I had no right to be upset. I typed back, "Nah, looks like you've got it handled, favorite child." Eric replied, "Oh my God, are you really mad about the will? Grow up, man. It's just money." Oh, now it was just money, now that he was the one getting it. The hypocrisy was unreal. I fired back. "Then you won't mind using some of that cash to cover the mortgage, right?" Silence. A few minutes later, my mom texted, going straight into guilt trip mode. "Jake, we're family. Family takes care of each other. We did so much for you growing up, and now you're just leaving us behind." I had to breathe deeply to keep from throwing my phone across the room. Leaving them behind? I spent years making sure they never struggled, all while they babied Eric and praised his laziness. And now that their poor choices caught up to them, I was the villain? Not this time. I answered, "You made it clear I wasn't family when you cut me out of the will. Let Eric take care of you." I could practically picture my mom gasping like she always did when playing the victim, even when she was in the wrong. A few minutes later, my dad texted, and it made my blood boil. "We're not asking for much. Just enough to cover the mortgage a few more months until we sort things out. Don't be selfish." Selfish. I had been sacrificing my time, money, and energy for years to make their lives easier. I did everything a good son was supposed to. And how did they thank me? By making sure I got nothing. And now that I was finally saying no, I was selfish? I clenched my jaw, took a breath, and typed back, "No, I'm done." Then I shut off my phone. They made their choice. Now, they could live with it. The silence lasted one day. I knew my parents wouldn't give up that easily, but I wasn't ready for what came next. The next morning, I woke up to a phone notification, a bank transfer request. I frowned, unlocking my screen. It was from my mom. She had the nerve to request money from me, like I was an ATM. The amount? $3,500. I stared at it in disbelief, half laughing at the sheer audacity. No message, no explanation, just a shameless demand for exactly what they needed to cover their overdue mortgage. They weren't asking anymore. They were expecting. I declined it instantly. Not even 5 minutes later, my phone rang. "Mom." I let it ring. Then came another text. "Jake, I know you saw the request. Why did you decline it?" I took my time replying. "Because it's not my problem. Ask Eric." Another call. Declined. Another text. "We're going to lose the house if you don't help." Now it was an emergency. After all those years of treating me like a human wallet, they were finally seeing consequences. I typed back, "Maybe you should have thought about that before deciding I didn't matter." Seconds later, Dad chimed in. "You're really going to let your parents end up homeless?" That one actually made me laugh out loud. The manipulation was so obvious it was almost hilarious. They weren't broke. They weren't about to be homeless. They just didn't want to touch their own savings because they were so used to me footing the bill. I ignored them for the rest of the day. That night, I got another text from Eric. "Dude, just send them the money already. You're blowing this way out of proportion." I clenched my jaw. This entitled little brat actually thought he could lecture me. I replied, "You mean the money you're inheriting? Why don't you send it?" Eric answered fast. "You know, I don't have that kind of cash right now." Oh, now it was about affordability. He was fine draining my accounts, but when it came to his own money, suddenly he was broke. I shot back. "Guess you better figure out then, bro. You're the one they picked." No response. I went to bed feeling weirdly peaceful, like I had finally broken free from years of guilt and manipulation. But the next day, things escalated. I was at work when I got a call from my building's front desk. "Hey, Jake. Your parents are here." I almost dropped my phone. The woman on the phone hesitated. "They're saying it's an emergency, that you're not answering their calls." Oh my God. They showed up at my apartment just because I stopped paying their bills? I took a deep breath, pinching the bridge of my nose. "Please don't let them up. I'm not expecting them." There was an awkward pause. They're being pretty pushy." I clenched my jaw. "I don't care. They can leave." I hung up. Immediately, another text from Mom. "We're downstairs. Open the door." No question. No apology. Just another demand. I didn't reply. Another text. "Jake, we're not leaving until you talk to us." I exhaled sharply and stood up. They weren't going to back down. Fine. Time to teach them a lesson they wouldn't forget. I grabbed my keys and stormed downstairs, my blood boiling. I wasn't scared. I was furious. The audacity to show up at my home, uninvited, demanding money like I was some personal ATM. No call first. No apology. Just a full-on ambush. They really thought they could corner me into giving in. I was just some naive kid. I yanked the door open, and there they were, Mom, Dad, and of course, Eric, all standing in this tight little group like they were about to stage some kind of family intervention. Mom had her arms crossed, wearing her classic disappointed mom face, locked and loaded. Dad stood stiffly, hands shoved in his pockets, looking somewhere between frustrated and entitled, like he couldn't believe he actually had to deal with this in person. And Eric, that little leech, had the nerve to look bored, like this whole thing was just a minor inconvenience for him, like he wasn't the whole reason we were even here. The second Mom saw me, she went full drama mode. Jake, finally, we need to talk. I leaned against the doorframe, arms folded. No, you need to leave. She blinked, like she physically couldn't process what I just said. Excuse me? You heard me, I said, voice steady but firm. You don't get to just show up at my apartment asking for money. That's crazy. Dad let out a sharp scoff. You're really going to let us lose the house over some petty grudge? I laughed coldly. Petty grudge? Oh, you mean the one where you decided I was good enough to pay your bills, but not good enough to include in your will? That grudge. Mom gasped, clutching her chest like I'd slapped her. Jake, that's not fair. We did what we thought was best for the family. I tilted my head. Best for the family? Or best for Eric? Just say it. Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. Eric, who had been weirdly quiet, finally spoke up. Look, man, I didn't ask for any of this. I turned to him, finally letting it out. No, you just sat back and took everything that was handed to you. You're 28 years old, Eric. Get a damn job. His face turned red. Dude, what the hell? I stepped closer. You heard me. You want to inherit a house? Start acting like someone who deserves one. You want to be the golden child? Start paying their damn bills. I'm done being your personal ATM. Eric looked away, suddenly fascinated by the sidewalk. Mom took a deep breath, trying to reset the guilt trip. Jake, he's your brother. I nodded. Yep, and I've supported him more than you ever have. Dad's face darkened. You're being selfish. I laughed. A real, genuine laugh. Oh, that's rich coming from you. I gestured between the three of them. You two decided Eric deserved everything, and I deserved nothing. Now you're desperate, and you're trying to guilt me into fixing it? Not happening. Mom's voice got sharper. We thought you'd be more mature about this. I raised an eyebrow. Mature? You mean quietly accept being betrayed and keep sending you money? Because that's what you really mean. Dad stepped forward, trying to tower over me like he used to when I was a kid. Jake, we raised you. We fed you, clothed you, gave you everything. The least you can do is help us now. I stared him dead in the eye. Already did. For years. And you repaid me by cutting me out. Mom's lip quivered. We thought you'd understand. I let out a breath, shaking my head. Oh, I understand perfectly. I understand that I was never really family to you. Just a paycheck. More silence. Crushing, undeniable silence. I turned to Eric, who was still pretending to be invisible. And you? What's your excuse? You had years to grow up, to get your life together, to contribute. But you didn't. You knew they'd take care of you. And when they're gone, you figured I'd step in, didn't you? Eric finally snapped. What do you want me to say, man? I didn't ask for this. I nodded slowly. Right. You didn't ask. You just took. His mouth opened, then closed. Nothing. He had nothing. Mom tried one last guilt trip. Jake, we're family. Family takes care of each other. I stared at her a long moment before answering. Exactly. So why didn't you take care of me? She froze. No words. No comeback. Nothing. I let out a slow breath, feeling lighter than I had in years. We're done here. I turned and walked back inside, shutting the door behind me. Before I even made it back to the couch, my phone buzzed. A new text from Dad. Wow. After everything we've done for you, you're really going to abandon us? I smirked, typing back. No, you abandoned me. I'm just finally accepting it. I hit send and blocked their numbers. But I had no idea that blocking them would only make things worse. It didn't take long for it all to spiral. Less than a day after I blocked them, I started seeing Facebook posts. My parents had never been great with technology, but they sure knew how to blast their dirty laundry online when they were feeling self-righteous. At first, I thought it was just the usual drama. That was their favorite move, airing family problems for everyone to see. But the longer I scrolled, the clearer it got. This wasn't just about me refusing to pay their bills anymore. The posts were dressed up as family love, but anyone could see they were passive-aggressive attacks aimed right at me. Mom posted about how she didn't raise her son to be selfish, about how true family helps each other no matter what. Her friends chimed in, saying things like how disappointing it must be to have a child so lost. Then Dad posted too, whining about how so-called family should never turn their back when needed. He wrote about how they gave their children everything, and now they were being abandoned. He tagged me, because of course he did, adding a passive-aggressive, hope you're happy at the end. And then came Eric. I should have known he wouldn't stay out of it. He shared a post dripping with fake loyalty. Some people think family's all about money. They don't get that it's really about love and sacrifice. I do anything for my parents. Some people just don't understand what it means to be family. He even threw in a little jab. I wish certain people could learn what family really means. That was it. That was my breaking point. I just sat there, staring at the screen, unable to believe it. They turned everything around, made me the villain. The selfish son who abandoned his poor, struggling parents, who didn't appreciate all the love they gave him over the years. How could they? I was the one who always worked, who always contributed, who never once complained. I had to accept that somehow they had convinced themselves they were right, and now they were telling everyone that I was the problem. I didn't want to react right away. I took a step back, gathered my thoughts, and gave it a few hours. I wanted to be sure I wasn't acting out of anger. But the more I thought about it, the clearer it became that I couldn't let them get away with it. If they were going to drag my name through the mud, I was going to speak up. I grabbed my phone and started typing. I logged onto my personal Facebook account, the one I keep just for close friends and real family, and posted a long update. I wasn't trying to play their game. I didn't want to get caught up in childish back and forths. I just wanted to tell the truth. Here's what I wrote. I know I've been quiet the past few days, but I can't stay silent anymore. My family has been posting a lot of things about me that just aren't true. They've painted me as the villain, the selfish one who refuses to help my parents when they need it most. I'm here to set the record straight. I have always supported my family. From the moment I could hold a job, I've helped with bills, bought groceries, and pitched in however I could. But there comes a time when you can't keep giving without being respected. Over the years, I watched my parents favor Eric, giving him the house, the money, the attention, while I was expected to keep giving without ever being treated equally. Some of you might think that's just family. But the truth is, family should go both ways. When I found out my parents left everything to Eric in their will, it hit me how one-sided it really was. They didn't even think of me. Not for a second. They made it clear that I'm just someone they can lean on when things get hard, not someone they actually want around unless it's convenient. For years, I funded their lifestyle, paid for trips, helped with taxes, covered bills. And for what? To be treated like a backup plan? I'm done. I'm not just some ATM they can run to when they're short on cash. I'm a person, and I deserve to be respected. I've earned the right to be treated like I matter, not just when they need something. As for Eric, it's time he steps up. He's 28 years old and has never held a real job or taken responsibility. My parents have coddled him so long, it's no wonder he's their favorite. But he's had plenty of chances to grow up. Now it's on him to stand on his own. To everyone watching this drama and siding with my parents, you need to understand there are two sides to every story. Yes, family is important, but so is mutual respect. I've given enough to last a lifetime, and I'm not sorry for stepping back. This isn't about turning my back on family. It's about finally choosing myself. And to my parents, I wish you well, but I'm done being your doormat. I hit post and immediately felt a wave of relief. For the first time, I was telling the world the truth about what I'd endured, the years of being used, the years of being expected to save everyone else without anyone ever thinking about me. I wasn't going to let them control the narrative anymore. The reactions came fast. People I hadn't spoken to in years reached out to show their support. Some cousins, family friends, even distant relatives liked the post and sent private messages saying they were sorry for what I had gone through. It felt incredible to finally have the truth out there, to stand my ground without being guilt-tripped or manipulated. But then came a backlash. My parents and Eric completely lost it. Eric messaged me, saying, "You're a traitor. You really had to put our family business out there like that. You have no respect for family." My dad called, practically screaming into the phone, "You've ruined everything, Jake. You'll regret this. You'll regret cutting us off and turning your back on your own blood." But I didn't regret it. Not even for a second. I blocked them all. I was done. And for the first time in my life, I was free. Free from the toxic hold they had on me for so long. As days passed, I could feel the weight lifting off my shoulders. I was finished being treated like I was less than. I was done being expected to solve everyone else's problems. Now, I finally had the freedom to live my life by my own rules. So no, I don't feel bad for cutting them off. I deserve better, and I still do. From here on out, I'm surrounding myself with people who appreciate me for who I am, not for what I can give them. It's time to move forward for good, and I will. The first few weeks after cutting them off were strange. Part of me kept waiting for the guilt to creep in, for the second guessing to start. After all, walking away from family isn't something you dream of doing. It's something you do when every other choice has been exhausted. But the guilt never came. Instead, there was peace, a quiet I hadn't realized I'd been missing for years. I started focusing on myself in ways I never had before. I spent time with friends who genuinely cared about me, reconnected with hobbies I had abandoned, and slowly started to rebuild the pieces of myself that had been chipped away over time. For once, my life wasn't centered around fixing someone else's mess. It was centered around building something good for myself. There were moments, sure, when I thought about the what-ifs. What if they changed? What if they finally realized how much damage they'd done? But deep down, I knew that even if they did, it wouldn't erase the years of being overlooked, undervalued, and used. Forgiveness doesn't mean putting yourself back into a toxic situation. Forgiveness, I learned, can sometimes mean closing the chapter for good and walking away with peace. Eventually, The noise from my parents and Eric died down. Maybe they realized I wasn't coming back. Maybe they found someone else to lean on. I didn't really care anymore. Their drama no longer had a front row seat in my life. I had reclaimed my own story. One afternoon, while sitting in my favorite coffee shop, I pulled out my journal and wrote something simple but powerful. I am not responsible for saving people who refuse to save themselves. It was the truth. I had spent so long believing that my worth was tied to how much I could sacrifice. But not anymore. I am worthy simply because I exist, not because of what I can give. In time, I found myself smiling more, sleeping better, laughing without that weight on my chest. I built a future rooted in mutual respect, love, and authenticity. And slowly, the pain of my past became just that, the past. I don't hate my family. I truly wish them well. But I also wish myself better. And that means staying true to the boundaries I finally had the strength to set. This is my life now. One where I choose peace over chaos, self-worth over guilt, and love that's given freely, not demanded through obligation. And for anyone out there struggling with the same decision, you're not a bad person for choosing yourself. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is walk away from the people who taught you to doubt your own value. I closed my journal, took a deep breath, and smiled. For the first time, I wasn't surviving anymore. I was finally living. And this time, I wasn't looking back. The first few weeks after cutting them off were strange. Part of me kept waiting for the guilt to creep in, for the second guessing to start. After all, walking away from family isn't something you dream of doing. It's something you do when every other choice has been exhausted. But the guilt never came. Instead, there was peace, a quiet I hadn't realized I'd been missing for years. I started focusing on myself in ways I never had before. I spent time with friends who genuinely cared about me, reconnected with hobbies I had abandoned, and slowly started to rebuild the pieces of myself that had been chipped away over time. For once, my life wasn't centered around fixing someone else's mess. It was centered around building something good for myself. There were moments, sure, when I thought about the what-ifs. What if they changed? What if they finally realized how much damage they'd done? But deep down, I knew that even if they did, it wouldn't erase the years of being overlooked, undervalued, and used. Forgiveness doesn't mean putting yourself back into a toxic situation. Forgiveness, I learned, can sometimes mean closing the chapter for good and walking away with peace. Eventually, the noise from my parents and Eric died down. Maybe they realized I wasn't coming back. Maybe they found someone else to lean on. I didn't really care anymore. Their drama no longer had a front row seat in my life. I had reclaimed my own story. One afternoon, while sitting in my favorite coffee shop, I pulled out my journal and wrote something simple but powerful. I am not responsible for saving people who refuse to save themselves. It was the truth. I had spent so long believing that my worth was tied to how much I could sacrifice. But not anymore. I am worthy simply because I exist, not because of what I can give. In time, I found myself smiling more, sleeping better, laughing without that weight on my chest. I built a future rooted in mutual respect, love, and authenticity. And slowly, the pain of my past became just that, the past. I don't hate my family. I truly wish them well. But I also wish myself better. And that means staying true to the boundaries I finally had the strength to set. This is my life now. One where I choose peace over chaos, self-worth over guilt, and love that's given freely, not demanded through obligation. And for anyone out there struggling with the same decision, you're not a bad person for choosing yourself. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is walk away from the people who taught you to doubt your own value. I closed my journal, took a deep breath, and smiled. For the first time, I wasn't surviving anymore. I was finally living. And this time, I wasn't looking back.